again. Uh, let's just start. And thank you, Suresh, for the introduction. I'm not used to such introductions. This was really kind of out of body experience. I think I feel very fortunate to be in this industry, to work with Power BI from the early days that it was starting. I was for many years a software developer, a product manager, delivering all kinds of software in different domains. And I was fortunate to join the Excel team in the right time, where Power BI was just being in its early days of a combination of Power View and Power Query and Power Pivot in Excel. And then as we saw and as we see today, moved into a separate service with the Power BI desktop and the service on top. And I just think that from being in a position where I developed software throughout my entire career, to make the decision that I want to move to a position where I can help users achieving more with this tool, was only possible because Power BI is truly an empowering solution. When you think about the fact that there are around probably close to 1 billion users that work with Excel today, and many of them in enterprise and business contexts are having lots of trouble doing a lot of repetitive work. The Power BI components and the automation elements of it were truly game-changing for me. And this is why I am here today with you, because I, again, so kind of like obsessed with the potential that this technology can provide to its practitioners. So that's me here today. The title of this session is Power BI Best Practices, but I want a bit more to talk today about best practices by looking actually into bad practices. The reason for that is I find in many cases where I work with different users of Power BI that because of the way that it was designed to be very easy for use for users that have no experience, and the more empowering and sophisticated layers are hidden away and in many cases are not available for many users, we find out in many cases situations where a Power BI practitioner may be able to join a session like the session that we have today and get tons of best practices and things that he can do better, and he can be really like impressed with the things that he can learn about. But the day after, when he go back to work and his boss is asking him to provide him some specific visualizations, typically there is no lasting impression. There is no long-term impact that will drive that person to do better and to take his journey in Power BI learning to the next level, just because the day-to-day job is too distracting. The number of different little things that you can do better are just endless. So I think when we are talking about Power BI and the bad things that you can do, this is where you can realize how things can get bad and what are the missed opportunities for you when you are not following best practices. And so by the way that you are looking on the things in a negative way, the negativity will be something that you will remember. And tomorrow, when you go to work and build reports, there is a higher chance that you will remember the bad things. And this, I think, will motivate you in a much more effective way to learn more with Power BI. The second reason is that I think that it's just more fun to talk about bad things than talk about best things, just because mistakes are typically things that we can all joke about. So that was my take about why kind of like we will pitch all this session about the bad things and not about the good things. Does it make sense?
Yep.
Okay, I will skip this slide about me. You got a much better explanation about my background and who I am. So let's move right to the agenda for our session today. This original presentation was designed for we were supposed before it was, I think, in around May or April. Was it? I think it was May. We had a Power Platform community summit in Barcelona. I plan to present there, so I had started to prepare a lot of content, and then COVID-19 hit us, and just we realized that no more conferences. So some of the content that you will see here is more designed for kind of like a 1.5 hour session. So we'll probably not cover everything today, but I will also send you this PowerPoint as a PDF version, so you'll be able to use it also as you go with your own audiences in your own organization, trying to spread the word of how to do Power BI in a good way. Whenever you want to talk a bit about the bad ways to get perhaps some higher engagement for your Power BI developers, you are welcome to use this content. Okay, so we'll start here with, let's move. This is one of the reasons why we may have crashes on my laptop is this guy here. So this is our Power BI astronaut. We will use for the next 10 minutes the metaphor of space travel, and let's assume that Power BI developers are to some extent astronauts on space. Okay, so are you ready to do some moonwalk with me?
Absolutely.
Right, let's do some moonwalking, and let's go through the walk on the moon of insights. Okay, so before we start, a few things that we should know about space travel, space, and Power BI. Okay, so Power BI is the best visualization tool in the solar system, right? You can do many things with the visualizations, very attractive, crazy dashboards that can be relevant even to fly any spaceship to any planet on the galaxy. And data visualization can take us to the stars, right? So nothing beyond visualization is important in Power BI. And you can see also, I will try to be a bit ironic here because everything that you'll see in the next slides, including this one, is an exaggeration that represent a real misconception by Power BI developers. Okay, and another misconception here that I can speak about is that storytelling is the most important thing in data analytics, and definitely with Power BI. Like if you are very charismatic and you know your way with words, you can take any data and create the right impression. And with parentheses, I can say lead also to an extreme bias, but that's not important because we are very charismatic. So we can convince anyone with very cool visualizations and flow drill throughs and bookmarks to create the narratives that we want. And that's the most important thing in our entire business. And of course, like this is a very bad misconception that we see in many situations. Another interesting misconception here by our Power BI astronaut is a bit about the engine of the spaceship. So you can see this is the data model, and our engineers can tune it using DAX. And the recommendation is just ignore it. You don't need it. You have some columns with numbers, drag and drop these columns into your visualizations, and that's it. And if you want to be a bit sophisticated, you can use the quick measures in Power BI, but definitely learning DAX is very, very wrong. Another bad thing that I can say as an astronaut is about the Power Query chamber. So this is the Power Query chamber in our spacecraft. You can see lots of things that are very, very sophisticated and really quite useless for us as astronauts. So we never want to be in this chamber. And the paraphrase for Power Query Editor is, I never turn on the formula bar in Power Query. And the reason is that if I need to understand M, I will just get some space phobia. Another point, this is about spacewalking, right? So security and being cautious, this is something that is kind of pointless, right? I don't want to use a very good rope to protect me as I do the spacewalking, because the ropes will make me very clumsy. And the paraphrase here is that I don't need a license for Power BI. I don't need Power BI Pro. I may not even use Power BI Premium. And I have a lot of IT people that will make everything too complicated to discuss. So let's just all bring our Power BI desktops for free and share all our reports with PBIX files. And let's just ignore all the implications that will come from it. Of course, all these examples were completely the opposite. The Power BI visualizations is not the main thing in Power BI. We'll talk a bit about Power BI visualizations and the misconceptions in the next few slides as well. The focus that we have by the industry on providing great narrative and storytelling to explain your data to relevant decision makers and influencers, while this is an important trait to be able to tell the story, it's also much more important that the story, the objective story, will tell itself through the report. Having a charismatic person in the room to explain something will most likely create the bias in the data itself. So it's much more important that you can build reports that can speak for themselves, make them simple, make them clear, and make sure, of course, that all the engineering work on the back end will be effective, efficient, with zero data quality issues, and of course, be able, when the business asks for a new question, be able to build a robust, sustainable Power BI report that will allow you with a simple drag and drop to be able to answer new questions that you didn't predict. But for all these elements, the storytelling is just a bonus, and I think a very dangerous one. The next thing is modeling, right? So with modeling as well, let's go here. Modeling in DAX is something that many vendors that are competing with Power BI will tell you that DAX is a nightmare. Many people within the Power BI community will not want to go to DAX, thinking that it is too scary. Some of them will go the other way around and will write 20 lines, 40 lines of DAX code just because they don't have the energy or the motivation to simplify their models and build everything much more simpler. So this component is either completely overlooked or being used in a very excessive manner. And Power Query, this low-code ETL framework, which is going to conquer the world of ETL soon, is something that many developers of Power BI completely know nothing of. And this is really, in my mind, it's a real tragedy, and I hope that this will be over soon. Okay, so that was the kind of the things that I wanted to kind of like complain about in the misconceptions that we have in different areas through the lenses of our Power BI astronaut. And now we'll move quickly and discuss each one of the areas in more details. And we'll start with visualizations. What do you think about this pie chart?
Looks very cluttered and
Look good, right? Okay. So, and this is coming from an actual article that was published by the Unicode organization, showing the statistics of different emojis being used globally. So just to show how dangerous data visualization can be, you don't need to have epilepsy to be scared from these kind of experiences. Around, I think a year ago, I published this survey on pie charts. I will just go here to the actual result to show you. Let me show you the actual results in the Power BI report. So clicking here, open this one quickly and share it with you. So this is the results of a survey that I shared in the community with 574 respondents. The survey looked like that. So you add here on the left different questions like, do you prefer, question one was, do you prefer this chart of a pie chart or a bar chart in your visuals? Okay, so you see question one, you got around 54.9% of the respondents preferred the pie chart here. And then we asked the respondents, do you prefer the pie chart here on the left or the pie chart here or the bar chart here on the right? You see the significant decrease of preferences to use the pie chart when you have only 4 categories. And then we asked again the same audience. Now this time you have here 8 categories. So you see the decrease. And again, another element here of asking the audience which one they prefer, the pie chart, the bar chart, or this tree map. So you can see the distribution of those users. What we found out with this survey, as it wasn't very surprising, is that pie charts, in a nutshell, are not very useful. They are not the right way to use in visualizations. Yes, if you have just 2 categories, perhaps 3, you may use it and it will be all right. There are some significant edge, kind of like unique emotional values that you can use from this visualization, but it's not something that you would qualify as a good way for professional data visualizations. Another element that I wanted to share with you here, so here you have some distributions of the different roles, and you see, for example, and this was actually very interesting. Let me go just for 1 second. So here you see in blue is the audience that didn't like pie chart no matter how many categories you add. So you see, and this I think is remarkable, that you had in the respondents a population of executives that 56% of the executives didn't prefer pie chart in any scenario. So this, I think, was a remarkable thing to see. We also tested some accuracy in the results. So we ask the audience in 2 questions to tell us in this specific pie chart, what are the top 2 cities that are the highest. And as you can see, deliberately, we made the slices a bit similar. And while the correct answer is London and then Paris, and you see the majority of the people answer the correct results, the correct answer, many users were completely wrong. So we have here 27% of the respondents couldn't answer this answer in the right way. Meaning that if you have pie charts and you are using them in more than 2 or 3 slices, you are taking the risk that your audience will just not be accurate, okay? So that was kind of a segue into a series of blog posts that I published on my blog around bad practices. You are welcome to check out the results of this. And if you are into breaking the habit of using pie charts, you are welcome to use these results in any way to kind of like spread the word, be a missionary around the anti-pie chart movement. I need to admit on my level, on my side, like I have no real objections to use it, but definitely when I see pie charts being used on more than 3 categories, I will not I will not hold my opinion to myself. Any questions regarding pie charts?
So apart from pie charts, what other visuals that everybody needs to be aware of that are usually bad practices?
That's a question that will probably require us to go through a journey of a few hours. I would say any visual in the wrong context is a wrong visual. And when you are looking on visualizations, it's important to make sure that your story is self-explanatory. And it's also make sure that you will maintain, as part of the solution, to sustain not just a specific user experience requirement, but to support actually four pillars as part of your best practices. And I will explain those 4 pillars now. And also in the Q&A, we can go through some more details also with visualizations. And by the way, I'll stop here and just say one thing for all of us today, for all of you. If you came to this session hoping to learn about good visualizations and bad visualizations, this to some extent can prove to you the main misconception that we are all in with regard to what is Power BI and why it is so unique. And the visualization is only one element of. And actually, the visualization is the easiest element to master. To provide best practice, to follow best practices with data visualization, you typically need to unlearn things rather than to learn things. If you keep things simple, you have a good chance to succeed. And we will explain also what are the main principles that you can focus on to ensure your success. Okay, and before we will do that, something that will help us to establish the foundation for the thinking is this very simple question: how can you measure a failure in your Power BI project? What is a failing project? What happens to a project when it becomes a failure? You know, some of us that are working in Power BI day to day, and we deliver Power BI reports to our company, to our managers, to our clients. In many cases, we are being asked to deliver a product A, we deliver product A, and then we go to do another project, or we are just, working perhaps on moving to another division, being promoted to be the person that is asking for new reports from others. But in many cases, we are not there to observe, to experience the failure on a Power BI project. And this is why many of us just don't know, don't understand what are the main foundations that can help us to build the best reports and also the best visualizations. Okay. Any kind of anyone that want to get some opinion here about like what do you think is a way to measure a failure in Power BI project?
It's probably the user, the number of people using the report. If they're not using it, it's considered a failure, right?
That's a way. This is more like a BI on BI, right? You are using KPIs to measure the success, and by the lack, the inability to achieve that KPI, you can define the failure in an objective way. Yeah, it makes sense. Anything else?
Anybody wants to chime in?
Okay. So let's go a bit through some of the things that can help us to understand what is the meaning of failure. And I admit that I'm a bit simplistic here, but I find it very common. So here you can see the main cause for a failure. Your solution cannot meet the business needs. It may meet the business needs today when you build the report. The question is, will it meet the business needs tomorrow? And what we find out in many BI solutions, and this is not just relevant to BI, to Power BI, it's relevant to any BI, but in specific, it's really important to discuss also with Power BI, even more than that. But the main thing is that once you deliver a project, a BI project, and you have new business needs that needs to be fulfilled and be maintained through your solution, the challenge to add the next feature, the challenge to fix the next bug creates a bottleneck that will eventually make your end users frustrated and upset. You will not be able to fulfill their new business needs on time. They will revert on using your solution just as a media to export the data to Excel. In my mind, this life cycle of delivering something today, not thinking about tomorrow, leading to a solution that is not sustainable, leading into a solution where your end users will give up on you, on your solution, is the life cycle of a failure. We see that in many, or in every organization on earth. As you go to the largest enterprises, you see it in a much more prevalent way. A lot of BI technologies today that are, legacy BI technologies or kind of like modern competing with Power BI technologies are all end up with a very ridiculous, to my mind, dialogue that I see that keeps repeating itself. And the dialogue is as follows. You as a Power BI developer you are approached by IT to deliver a BI solution. In many cases, the requirements from the business that is translated with your dialogue with your IT team is as follows. Our business users want this table. We just need to provide them this table. In many cases, you will have a table of a few hundreds columns and few millions or billions of rows, but you end up with a requirement of the business just wants it all. And this is, in my mind, a kind of an irony, a tragic irony, where instead of having a dialogue with the business and learn what they actually want to achieve, how do they plan to measure their success, what are the KPIs that they are trying to achieve, what their end users are doing on their day-to-day meetings as they inspect their data, what kind of things they are doing with the data, what are the actions that they want to take from the insight that they can have. Without this dialogue, you end up with the fact that business for an entire generation by now is already frustrated and have very low expectations from IT. And because of that, there is typically very low dialogue and just the kind of simple request of just bring us these tables. We want to be able to access them, and we will do whatever we want with it. Now, I'm not against self-service analytics. Self-service analytics is the key to success, but to be in a position where you deliver something and you don't understand what your end users are trying to achieve, this is where you will end up in just delivering a Power BI solution that will turn into another proxy of exporting the data to Excel. Okay, so in my mind, the only way to avoid this life cycle of failure is to think about the success through the landscape of 4 pillars. The first pillar is user experience. So definitely the visualizations that you design should be top-notch. You need to follow best practices. You need to make sure that they are built in the right way. However, when you build a visual in a way that will then turn the performance of the report itself to be very bad, you are killing the future of this report, right? So this is relatively makes sense, right? Performance and user experiences are going side by side. It's relatively easy to think you may have an amazing scatter chart, but if it takes 1 minute to load that scatter chart, then what's the point in that scatter chart, right? That's a very nice user experience, but people will just lose patience and you will lose them forever. So that comes end with end. However, the 2 bottom pillars that are really important are the agility and sustainability of your Power BI delivery. Agility means that whenever you have a new feature request, a new idea how you can take your report into the next level, you will be able to do it very quickly. So anything that you build in this Power BI report should also be built in a way that will allow you to be very nimble and fast as you deliver new value to your end users. If you don't have this ability, you will end up very soon with scenarios where the business will ask for something new and you will tell them back, oh, this will take me now 1 month to complete. Oh, we didn't think about this thing when we build the specific visualization that you ask for. What you are asking now will require a completely different design, and we will not be able to do that on a timely manner. Or you will tell in response, oh, this data is required some shaping that we don't know how to do, or we prefer to ask IT to own it and build it on their ETL systems. And, you know, let's wait 6 months till we will modernize our data warehouse, and then we can start build those solutions for you. So all these areas, you build something today that is not agile enough to get evolved into the future, this is where next week or next quarter, your end users of this Power BI report will end up just taking the data from your solution and manually build things on top with Excel or perhaps with another Power BI report after they export the data from your solution. There are, by the way, some great ways to use Excel on top of Power BI in a way that provides lots of innovation and agility, but I think that you got this message. The last one is sustainability. Sustainability is very close to agility. It's more the ability to be agile on the day-to-day maintenance, the ability to take a component that you built in Power BI and reuse it. So let's say if you have a very good, very impactful Power BI report page, and now you just want to build 3 more like that for different divisions, and they have some nuances, they have some different visualizations, like 90% of the page is the same, but 10% is different for each division. The fact that you decide to accommodate the user experience for these 3 different divisions, and by that you are losing the reusability of your entities in Power BI, will make your solution down the road less sustainable. When you will have a bug, you will need to fix it in each one of the tabs. Eventually, you are creating a solution that will be prone to errors, and by having less sustainability, you will end up in increasing your chance of having a failed project. Make sense?
Yeah.
So when you ask me, for example, if you will show me 2 visualizations, one is a very simple one, very clear, give you the insight in a kind of a simple and humble way. And then another one is amazing, and you added there like 20 different visuals, and you were very creative, and you built something that nobody else can create and nobody else can see. And the impact on the executives is really amazing, a wow factor for any person that will see this report. You need to ask yourself question A, is the performance of this solution will be sustainable? And also, do you have a sustainable solution in terms of the reusable elements? And can you really, next time that there is a change, how much time it will take you to take all this amazing multi-object experience that you created just to create some amazing user experience without realizing that the cost to sustain that new experience will not be worth it, perhaps in next quarter, as completely new demands will come from your audience, right? So this is where, for anything that you can create in a day, and that's fine, you don't need to think about it in a bad way. But if you need to build a solution and own it and maintain it and put it in production for thousands of users to be used and drive decisions, as you will do more and more things that are very, very unique and complex in their implementations, just to reach a specific executive requirements in mind, this is the missed opportunity, because you may be able to go to that executive and tell him that is going to lose agility and sustainability by taking experience A instead of an experience B, which is much more simpler with out-of-the-box visualizations that will drive probably the same insights just without the emotion. Okay. Now let me just show you, before we move to the next topic, we are still in the visualizations. I wanted to show you an example for areas where, for every rule there is an exception. And I'm not asking you now to build everything just with out-of-the-box visualizations. I'm just asking you to expand your perspective and your decision-making and influence on your product owners and feature owners in your reports to take into balance all the 4 pillars and not just a specific user experience in mind. What I want to show you now, if you will go to App Source, you can find one of my not this one, sorry, this one. So this is a template app that I published on App Source to analyze COVID-19. You are welcome. I can share the link here as well. If you are following my blog, you probably already tried it out. The reason why I'm sharing now with you this specific, so you can click here on Get It Now if you have a Power BI Pro license, and you can instantiate this report within your Power BI environment. And here I just wanted to show you a screenshot of this dashboard as an example for where sometimes we make some decisions to make a wow impact. Knowing that we may violate some best practices, but still we do it intentionally because we can do it. So here in this example, what I wanted to share with you, this is an example of a dashboard that I built for COVID-19. It has one very simple violation in terms of best practices in data visualizations. And the main one here is the background. So if you will look relatively, increasing the zoom here of this, I cannot do it, it doesn't allow me. Yeah, so it's like the background here, I designed it intentionally in a kind of like, the color is blood, and there is a kind of an effect like you will feel like this is just like something biological that is bad for you, a kind of like plasma or some relatively very annoying background that was meant for one single purpose, to make a wow impact. Now, this is a tricky part and an important part to realize. There are different dashboards that we build on the day-to-day basis. There is the type of dashboard or report that was meant for a data analyst, and someone is going to work with it for more than a few minutes every day. For that type of dashboard, you don't want to have this kind of experience, and you really need a clean background. There are also some dashboards that you put on some corridor rooms or in operation centers where you have lots of KPIs and trend lines that are popping up in real time, and it's important that the people in the room will be able to monitor many different KPIs, and when something bad happens, something will pop up and everybody will get attention to it. So this kind of like flashy experience and raising attention may be relevant. And there is a third kind of dashboard that was just meant to attract a kind of like 10 seconds impression to try to attract an audience to your work. And this is the only reason why you see this background here. So in other words, when I use this background, I'm saying I did it just to get your attention. I wanted to get some wow factor from you. But if you will now use this dashboard for more than 5 minutes, you will probably get much better by turning this background off, right? So in this case, if you are building reports to be able to attract a very tough commodity, which is your C-level attention, by all means, break all the best practices that you want to attract their attention. But once you want to have an experience for the data analysts, then definitely following the best practices of simple, clean data visualizations is really important. Okay, so I just admitted here that I'm also following sometimes a lot of bad practices, but I try to be very intentional about it. Any questions?
Any questions, anybody? You can unmute yourself and ask the question.
Okay, so here a summary on the 4 pillars, okay, and how to avoid failures by following these 4 pillars. So user experience, try to keep it as simple as possible. Whenever it is not simple, try to reflect what are going to be the costs of the other pillars, because the other pillars, if you are not following them, you are increasing the chances of a failure with this project. Performance, the time to load the report by users is critical, so make sure that you are keeping the best of your optimizations to make sure that the report is highly performing. With that regard, just to give you an example, sometimes I get to work on some Power BI reports after they call for my help to do some optimizations, and I come and I hear the story of I have here this Power BI report, and recently it takes a minute to load. So I asked the audience, the Power BI developers, okay, before the recent change, what was the time that it took to load this report, this visual? And I get like an answer like 20 seconds. So this is an example of don't even start, never deliver a Power BI solution that takes 20 seconds to load. It doesn't, the 1 minute delay is a nightmare, but everything above 5 seconds is probably something is wrong in the design, in the architecture, in the entire approach of what is important to your end users. And it's really important that you will balance performance, not just when the threshold is high, but also on small thresholds and also on very small data sets. Measure performance on smaller data sets to avoid getting the problem only when you release the solution on production on the larger data set. So this is an important element to focus and work on. With the agility, try to evaluate how much time it's going to take you to fix a bug in a specific area. You introduce a new feature and you think this feature is going to be very complicated, try to reflect that to your decision makers, to the product owners, to the project managers, that this specific new requirement that we are going to fulfill are going to be require high maintenance in the future. When you build DAX measures, make sure that you are writing them in a way not just to support you tomorrow, but also to support self-service experiences. So make sure that you hide the measures that are not needed, hide the columns that you are not using, make sure that the names are clear and simple, and think about how your solution is going to be used tomorrow when the requirements are not known yet to you. And whenever you find areas of very complex implementation, try at least to add to your backlog items some optimizations also in the actual implementation. Okay, so we'll move now to another important element. Do we have time till 8 for? We have 15 more minutes.
Yeah, we have plenty of time. Good.
Okay. So this is a nice one actually. I published it also in the new year of 2020, way before we knew what we are going to have in 2020 with COVID-19 and all the craziness that is out there. You are welcome to use this QR code. It will get you into a PDF that you can print. This is a nice content if you are part of a Power BI Center of Excellence, or you are responsible for a team of Power BI developers, and you want to make sure that Power BI will be understood in the right way. So let's go through the main elements here of the different items of Power BI and the misconception of many people in many organizations about what is Power BI and what it is not. Okay, so Power BI is a data visualization tool. This is something that I hear at least 3 times every day. Starting from the year 2020, the new year, I made a kind of a resolution that every time that I meet someone, and I think that just even like with a slight clue that he thinks that Power BI is just a visualization tool, I'm going to give him a kind of a long pitch about it. And these are the 6 elements of why the misconception by many people that Power BI is just a visualization tool is very costly, and the missed opportunities coming with this misconception are truly staggering. Okay, so on the first bullet here, you see one of the misconception about the visualization of Power BI is because many people in many projects thinks that Power BI is like Tableau or Click or other solutions. It's just a framework to build visualizations. In many projects, the Power BI developers will be involved only very late in the project. So when you are starting in a project where you have so many engineers that already worked on all the nuances of the data platform and a data warehouse, or combine the data in big flat files and tables to accommodate, and now they just called you, build this pie chart here and here and here. This is where they really don't understand that if they would call you from day one, they are going to get an amazing different value from you, not just as a pie chart creator, but as a low-code, full stack BI practitioner that can turn around any BI project to be much more successful. I can talk for an hour just about the elements here, and you know, if you are not a strong Power Query practitioner and a data modeling, you may not understand exactly what I am referring to, but I can only just tell you that if you will go through the deepest of DAX and Power Query and the M language, and with the M language, you don't need to learn it all. You just need to use it as a kind of a low-code framework. You use the user interface of Power Query Editor and just do some fine-tuning of M, like I mentioned in my book. And this is something that, you know, I recommend that you will consider as well. Once you have these capabilities, you can find yourself, when you are engaged in projects in the right time, you can turn around the success of projects by the fact that now you can start the project from right to left, meaning instead of starting from the left, building a data warehouse, and then gradually build all the architecture and the data movement and the sophistication to stage the data in a very relevant way to fit your business, your data visualization needs. When you start a project from day one, you can start from right to left. You connect using Power Query to the raw data, no matter which legacy system is hosting this data. You bring the data into the model, you build an amazing model, and you publish the dashboards in Power BI and the visualizations, and you can turn on the project in a way where instead of now the data modelers, the data ETL teams, and many other engineers will work many months before you start a project. You start a project with them, you build a solution in Power BI, all the executives and decision makings can start joining the party, becoming the audience for the iterations of this project, and give you feedback and be much more engaged and contribute to the evolving requirements for the project. You know, we are not working in just waterfall these days. To be truly agile, the ability to deliver a solution in early iterations of the project, and from each iteration to provide more value, is something that can only be achieved if they will bring you to these projects from day one. And by having these kind of low-code ETL in your solution, even if 20 brilliant Databricks developers will work next for 3 months to deliver the amazing modernized data warehouse that is needed for this project, the fact that you could, in the first iterations of the project, without any of their help, build the solution will allow you, as you transition into their data warehouse, it will allow you now to use your solution also as a great testing tool to support all the development that they do. So having a low-code ETL and a low-code data exploration capabilities within Power BI using Power Query and the in-memory model allows you to be much, much better than, and saying better will upset some people on the other side, but you can really help any existing team of data engineers to be able to understand the data faster and to iterate over data improvements and quality checks way better in using Power BI, not just as your early prototype, but also as your data quality framework for the project. So really amazing value that we see in many projects where Power BI developers that understand Power Query and modeling are starting from day one. The next element here is Power BI developers are hired only by their visualization skill. And this is, I think, a bit sad. I need to admit that we have many amazing people in data visualization that create amazing graphically designed visualization experiences. Some of them they don't come with data engineering in mind or in engineering in any way, and to ask them to learn about Power Query or DAX is not relevant. I'm not talking about this audience. They are very important in any project, and probably their artistic skills are a rare commodity, and we need them as well. However, the fact that the hiring people for any project are only considering Power BI developers by visualization skills create a very serious bias where in any project you'll typically need a good modeler and a good Power BI visualization developer, and using, for example, Power BI Live Connection, connecting to a model using the Power BI datasets, allow you to have these two different personas working simultaneously side by side. But the fact that they are not even being hired, like the data modelers are completely overlooked, and nobody on the hiring team understand what to ask in order to find the right modelers and Power Query developers, make this entire story a bit sad. Next item is that many of our practitioners just refuse to learn about the complex things about Power BI. So you get into a point where you think you see something complex, it is very strange to you, right? It's like the M language is like a very strange creature. I understand why everybody would hate it. When I saw calculate in DAX for the first time, I was committed. I told to myself, I'm never going to learn this language. I don't want to. I don't need it. I'm not going to learn it. And as you decide not to learn the things that are ugly and complex, you are getting into a position where there is a kind of stagnation, because you end up being successful in the day-to-day objectives by the tool set that you know, but you don't understand how you can gain additional value if you will just try to go through the psychological barrier and be ready to get, don't be scared away because things are ugly and complex in some elements that you prefer not to go through. There are amazing opportunities in this area, and that's why I think an important element and obstacle is that, like, you think about just data visualizations, and anything beyond that is too scary to consider. And that's a shame, because these technologies were designed for Excel users in mind, and any above average Excel user with the right motivation can become a master in Power BI full stack. So that's an important element to know. Then the next one, the fourth element here is, you think you can do everything with visualizations, so you refuse to bring another person to the team. And that's an important element where one person is not better than two. And if you will understand that there is an actual domain in Power BI which is called data modeling, and there are people that are brilliant in this specific area, bring them into the project, because they will be able to challenge also IT in their data preparations elements to make sure that the model is the best to achieve your business objectives. And by having such people in your team, your existing visualizations will be just easy to achieve. Your DAX will be simpler, and many good things can happen by realization that this is a skill set that, if you don't possess at this stage, to make sure that the right people will join the team, even for a short period, can be a game changer. The last one, and this is the one that I really like, is that we typically are very confident and sure that we know enough in Power BI. And by this kind of confidence, we get into a position where we don't know what we don't know. In other words, the low entry point to start building things in Power BI, and any short-term success that you have with Power BI, lead you to a position that you don't look on the sides, you don't reach out with curiosity to find out if there is another layer to discover in Power BI, and you get into the point that you just don't, you don't know what you don't know. And with this experience, the thing that I am seeing day by day is, during interviews of Power BI developers, asking them questions about Power BI and knowledge. This is cases where, for me, it's not important. I'm not upset that somebody doesn't know a very complex M function or DAX. But when I ask a question and the person with a lot of confidence is providing an answer that is completely not relevant, and it doesn't even understand that there are layers in this technology that it just don't know at all, this is where I see a lot of risk, because this overconfidence without the understanding of so many areas that this practitioner doesn't know can lead to very bad implementations. So I think humility is an important thing, and the realization, if you hear about something in an interview, like what is a filter context or what is a star schema, and you are starting to just answer something without understanding, you will just do way better telling the interviewer, that this is a domain, a feature name, a topic that you are not sure of or you didn't learn about. And this will just be way, way better than going to a project without the understanding, and then we have a lot of unlearning to do in order to get these practitioners into the right mindset. So again, I have nothing against them. I just think that when you are working with the technology and you just fulfill the requirements from your managers without stopping a bit and trying to understand all the peripherals of your knowledge to see if there is something to gain, this is like where you will not get anywhere with this technology. And the true career transformative opportunity for any Power BI practitioner is to go into the boundaries and try to at least know what you don't know. That will get you into a much better position than rather than thinking that you know and don't even bother to look on your borders. And finally, and this is a nice one, so this is quite kind of like the opposite. We have many situations where we work with Power BI developers. They know DAX top notch. They can build the most sophisticated DAX measures that you can just think of, but they will not be able to realize that simplicity is more important to them. So the over-engineering element is something very challenging. And you see also a lot of over-engineering also with the visualization. So it always starts with the fact, like I see it a lot, the client asks for a requirement, for a feature. It can be a client, it can be an owner of the project from within your company. There is a requirement, there is a well-defined visualizations that the client wants, and then the smartest person in the room that knows Power BI will jump to deliver this over-engineering solution just to fit the needs, instead of stopping for a second and ask why do we need it? And then explain to the owner of this requirement what is going to be the implication of having the over-engineering work being conducted to fulfill these needs. Okay, here this is where I may give you an example. We have enough time. I can finalize with a quick demo.
Yeah, I think that sounds good. Hopefully it works out for everyone as well, but go ahead, Gil.
Cool. Yeah, so we'll finalize with a demo. We have here just another element that I will skip for today about Power BI governance. You can also find it in my blog, and later after this session, I'll provide all the links for these resources so you can use that. This is just a typical way to see how different organizations are addressing the mass adoption of Power BI within the organization. You have different maturity phases within the organization. Each maturity phases have its own problems and risks. And in each one of these phases, you have some very serious bad practices that can lead to some big troubles, especially for IT and also for the decision makers with the deliveries that we provide them. So if you are into governance and looking about Power BI in a higher resolution than just a specific project that you deliver, you are welcome to check this one out. So what I'm going to share with you today is an example for very common bad practices that are, I'll focus more with Power Query and share with you how Power Query is being used by basic users. So just 1 second. So I have here, by the way, for many things that if you are into Power Query and learn Power Query to a next level, you are welcome to use to consider purchasing my book. But even if you don't purchase my book, if you will go to microsoftpressstore.com/powerquery, you will end up with the page of my book. And here under the download section, you have a big zip file that you can download for free with all the exercises of the book. You don't have the instructions of the exercises and the step-by-step explanations as the book provide, but you can download here for each one of these chapters. You see 14 chapters here. Each one of them will contain a combination of the raw data and the Power BI solution to the problem. So you may not find what is the problem, but you have here the raw data and the solution. And if you are above the average developer of Power BI, you may be able to do reverse engineering and learn a lot without purchasing the book. I'm not recommending, I'm just saying I'm not in the business of selling the book now. Okay, so what we are going to do today, we are going to use here this specific zip file. No, actually not this one. Sorry, guys. We'll take, so in chapter 3, there is a specific exercise that I really like to share. Let's open the workbook to explain. Okay. So here, this is from chapter 3, exercise 4. In the book, I am sharing the correct way to handle this data. In today's session, I will show you briefly what are the sequence of bad things that you do when you import this data. So here, what you can see, let me just move this one here. You see that we have Excel data with 3 tabs for each year. This is all just AdventureWorks data set for learning purposes. So you have all kinds of different bikes or different accessories for bikes or clothing that are relevant for bikes. And you have each product here divided by the different release year for the product. Okay? So just 3 tabs for different products. And now our objective is to combine these 3 tabs inside Power BI and do the analysis, right? So let's just close this report, this Excel file, and open Power BI. And I will talk about what would a newbie of Power BI, a person that doesn't know anything about Power Query, will do with Power BI as he approaches this data. If some of you are thinking that this is very trivial, you are in a good shape. If some of you think that this is something that you would do yourself, don't feel very bad about it. Just know that I'm sharing it with you to let you kind of like know that you have a great opportunity. A lot of value will come on your way as you will just start understanding that Power Query is a great next step for learning for you. So I'm clicking here on the Get Data in Power BI Desktop, and let's select Excel, and we'll go to our folder with the data. And so data in chapter 3 and exercise 4. Okay, now the navigator dialog box will open up, and you can see that we have here the tab for 2017, 2018, and 2019. Okay, what would do the average user? And this is really like very very trivial and natural to do. Just because of the design by Microsoft, I will do this, this, and this, right? I will select these three tabs, and then I will load it into the report and do some of the work. So the starting point, just for like, let's say we just learned Power BI today. We don't know anything about the data preparation elements of Power BI. What we would do now, we will just click load, right? This is the default option for Power BI developers. Some of the biggest misconceptions that we have about this product is because the spontaneous developers of Power BI that will just try and learn it as they go and try it, will just go through the main scenarios, and by doing that, they will miss completely the entire value of Power BI as a full stack solution. So you see now, I will load these three tables. And now if I need to start building analysis on them, here we are lucky because we cannot do anything with these columns, right? So probably I will try to look for some help. So I'm in a good shape, right? But many situations you will end up with Power BI reports where you have these three tables in your model, and this is a complete nonsense. You cannot really build anything sustainable by, let's say, if we need the price value for each product, to have a measure that will go over the three tables in order to provide insight. It's not a sustainable solution, right? Any questions about that? So now let's move. You are welcome to jump in and ask questions as we go. So now let's.
There is a question from Damo. Damo, you want to unmute yourself and ask the question? So his question is the same PQ available in Excel?
Exactly, yes. Power Query is available in Excel. It was, by the way, in Excel before it was in Power BI. Let me open Excel. If you have Office 365, then you are in the best shape because, and probably you have Office 365. This one is available starting from Excel 2016. You can see if I will go to the Data tab, and here this section, Get Data. Everything here, this is Power Query. Launch Power Query Editor. This is Power Query. The same engine. The binaries are typically older than Power BI. Power BI Desktop is being released every month. Excel for enterprises is being released I think every quarter. You get a new update. You may be able to get some new functionality, but you will typically get the same functionality probably like a quarter away from Power BI Desktop, but it's the same engine. And when you use it in Excel, you can then decide whether you load the data into the grid as a table or into Power Pivot as a data model, the same data model technology that you have in Power BI. Okay.
I guess there is
to our,
as well. Is there a limitation on the size of the data that can be loaded in Excel?
The same limitation that you have in Power BI Desktop if you use the data model. So if you decide, let me just show you here very quickly. If I will go here and select here the file and Excel, and I will select here the same report, I will end up with, just to show you, the navigator. This is the same navigator, right? I can now, by the way, this is even a better experience because I cannot load them all, but I can do here and then load them all. Okay, and this is a bad practice to do that. We'll show you in a few minutes why. But here you see I click transform data, and now I have Power Query Editor. And let's say that I just want to bring these tables as is. I can click here in close and load to. Close and load by default will load everything into the grid. Close and load to will get you the import data experience. And this one will allow you, if you load it into the table, you are limited with the number of rows in Excel, right? So it's about like 1 million row limitation. However, if I will select this option here, only create connection, and click this option, add this to the data model, now I'm using the same technology as Power BI, and I have no limitation but the limitation of my hardware in this computer. Okay, so here, these 3 files are being loaded here. And the beauty of these files is that I can even click here on copy and now open a new Power BI report. Okay, just to show you, I am here in the transform data, and look, I can go here and paste and take 2017 as a new query in Power BI. So these 2 products work side by side, allowing you to move some artifacts from A to B and B to A. Okay, did I answer the question?
That's very nice.
This is indeed, yeah, this is indeed very nice. And I can tell you, like, the beauty of Power Query is way, way beyond just Excel and Power BI, because you have Power Query in Power BI data flows, and you have Power Query in Power Platform data flows, allowing you to store that, prepare data using this technology in common data services as well. So Power Apps developers and Dynamics 365 developers can use your data shaping in their own solutions. And Azure Data Factory has a Power Query technology inside in preview that will probably evolve in the near future to be the same capabilities. So this is like for a practitioner of Power Query, the opportunities that you have in organizations to do magic are amazing. And it's magic because nobody knows about it. They either bring some ETL developers or Python developers, or I don't know what developers, and you have here the ability to come and do things 10 times, 30 times faster than in any other technology. So this is really remarkable. So let's move to our demo just very quickly. So you can see here we brought these 3 tables. The tables are not, we need to go and click here and promote the first row as headers to fix the columns, right? But many developers will end up here, and you will just, let's say we want the standard cost. So let's change this one to dollars, right? Many developers will just end up by having these 3 tables, and they will load it into the report, and they will start build very messy measures on top of this. Now, sometimes you end up in a position where you start the project by the need to connect to these 3 tables in a data warehouse. It's not something that you can control, but many are not even aware of the fact that all these tables have the same schema, and it makes sense to append them together, right? So the next level of maturity would be, okay, I know that these 3 tables are the same, right? So most of us knows in Power Query to go here under Append Queries and click Append Queries as new. And now I can create a new table that will be the append resolution of these 3 tables. I can now call this table products. And I have this, and I can now click and load it into the report. And then you see the next kind of bad practice here is that by default, I have now a duplication of the data. I don't need these 3 tables, right? So next thing that I can learn, and many people are learning that only after they have a lot of memory issues in the Power BI report, or they are reaching their 1 gigabyte limit. So now the next thing that they learn is, oh, I can disable here the load of all the baseline tables. I don't need those anymore, so I can disable them and I will just load the products. So clicking here in close and apply, you will see now the 3 tables will disappear and I only have the products in the model, a better phase in our knowledge. Moving next, you may have some scenarios on your case where your tables are much more sophisticated and complex, but the fact that you can build tables from multiple queries, allowing you using the view tab, looking in query dependencies, allowing you to understand how the different queries are connected, and build very complex ETL pipelines using references and duplicates in this solution. So a good way for you to see if you have in your report situations where you are using baseline tables that you don't really need in the report, you can just, of course, disable them. But I want to talk with you today about what is so bad with even this scenario, right? So when you have this scenario, this is an example of how you are building a solution that is good for today, but will not be very good for tomorrow. Because tomorrow, what can happen is, just to show you, I will do a refresh. So now the report was refreshing, and let's just show the color by standard cost, just as an example with a bar chart. Okay, so we have yellow. Yellow is the, let's change this one to average. And this is another bad practice, using this control and creating implicit measures instead of creating explicit measures in DAX. We will not cover it today, of course, but so now I know that the red product is by average, the most expensive product that we have. But what will happen if for some reason our our Excel owners, our data source owners will decide one day to go here and let's go to the raw data. Okay, and I'm going now to add here 2020. Let's just even duplicate it. All right, so just for the sake of demonstration, I'm going to where is the copy? I don't have a move or copy. Okay, so I'm creating a copy, and this one will be 2020. Just to make it a bit, let's change this one to 800. So the data is a bit different. So now when we have this tab, of course, what is going to happen in the report when I refresh it? Right, we will completely miss 2020. Right, now, does it make sense that each time that you have new data, you will need to go to the Power BI Power Query to make changes? No, it's not a good practice for you, because this is a kind of a very dependable habit. You will end up in just doing lots of maintenance all day long instead of learning new things and providing higher value for your organization and team. Another even worse scenario can happen if I will take this 2017, okay, and let's say that 2017 is no longer in the data, or by mistake someone just moved it here. If I will now save this report, okay, and go, actually this one may work. So it's not a good example. I can demonstrate it a bit later. But the idea here is that you need each time to go to Power Query and manually starting to import new tables each time and append them here as well, right? Manually, or using here the cogwheel settings. This is not a sustainable solution. So now let's move very quickly to a better approach. So now I'm going to remove, let's just delete these elements altogether. and close and apply, and the visual will break, of course, right? We don't need this visual. And now let's do it from sketch. So I'm going again, this time in the correct way. So we go to the get data, selecting the Excel connector, selecting here our data source. And now starting the trick here, we have the new here as well. So now instead of selecting these three elements, which will generate in our code statically different items, instead what we are going to do is right click here and select transform data. Not very intuitive, I know, but you see that the end result is pretty much the same as if you are loading a folder, like a SharePoint folder or your local folder into Power Query. Like you have your new source under the more option, you have the ability to choose a folder, file, you see folder or SharePoint folder. This is a similar experience. And now in this case, what I can say, I would like to select these two columns. I want to keep them. I will remove everything else. And now I can click here under the expand, okay? And I will have all the data expanded in one single table. You see here when I click on the filter, I have the 4 years, and this implementation will not require, next time that we have another tab, I don't have nothing here in the code that is specific for a tab, so it will not fail, and then we will not miss anything. Okay, so this is a better approach, and now all we need to do is figure out, okay, we are going to have here somewhere down below between 2018 and 2019, you see this line is a header. So we need to figure out how to clean the data a bit, but we are in a better shape. By the way, I didn't mention something very important in Power Query. If this is the first time that you use Power Query, you will see that in the View tab, your formula bar will not be checked. I really recommend that you will check it up, because this will give you a glimpse into the scripting language, the expression language called M, that is really important. You will never need to fully understand all the nuances of the syntax. But when you find out, for example, here column 1, then you understand that if somehow in your data, column 1 will disappear, then a refresh, next time that your report is going to be refreshed, you will get a failure because this step requires to have column 1. Okay, so the fact that you can go step by step and check out the code will help you to understand a bit better the resilience of your code. And if you are really brave, you can go in the Home tab, click the Advanced Editor, and see this is the entire M language being translated as an entire expression section that represent each one of the steps in your query are just separated lines. Each line is input and output, ending up in a pipeline that starts from step 1, step 2, step 3, and the result, as you can see, is the step 3. This syntax is a bit intimidating for people that are not familiar with this kind of syntaxes. Any developer, no matter if you know any coding, any programming languages, you may feel a bit disoriented when you see this for the first time, and probably for the 20th time as well. But knowing that you don't really need to master all the nuances here on your first year of working with this technology, and most of the work can be done using the UI, and sometimes lightweight manipulations of the formulas are all that you need to know at this stage. And that's like, will take you will be able to solve 85% of any data challenges just by not knowing the entire syntax and just lightweight manipulations. So back to our scenario, and we'll wrap it very quickly. I know we have like 15 more minutes and we are jumping through the Q&A. I will just ramp up with the solution here. So in this case, we would like to use the first row as our headers because we have the column headers. So I will go here and use first row as headers. Okay. And now all we need to do is go here under name, and you can see, let's assume that we don't have a product that is called name, because name is our column header. So I can go here relatively easy and search for name and uncheck it. Okay, and now we got rid of all the headers in between the different tabs. Next, I just need to go here to 2017 and rename it to release here. Now, here comes a tricky part, but now it's more for advanced users. So if you are in the business of delivering reports to your enterprise, and your reports are going to be in production, and decision makers are going to use it, and it needs to be used, like you need a schedule refresh to work every day and to be successful, and you don't want every day to come and go through all kinds of disasters and fire drills to fix things so the schedule refresh will work. You can see here that we have in rename columns, the rename columns assumes that the column name was 2017. So because we don't have time, I will not prove it to you, but in other demos that I do, at this stage, I'm switching 2017, moving 2017 to be the second tab, 2018 is the first tab, and then when, actually no, in this case, yeah, that will work as well. So you see when we did the promotion of the headers, okay, so here our first row was 2017. If we will change the order of the tabs and the first tab will no longer be 2017, when we do the promote headers, you will have here another value. So when you do a rename, the rename here, this step will fail. You will have a refresh failure. And if you published it to the service with a schedule refresh, now you have a fire drill. And that's not a very fun thing to do. To solve this one, this is where we are going into lightweight knowledge of the language M. What we are going to do is to replace 2017 with the expression of telling Power Query, please give me the name of the first column. So to do that, all we need to do is to type here table.column names. Okay, this one will return a list of all the names. I just need to provide the table as an input. Our table name is basically filtered rows, which is the previous step. This is the table in the previous step of our data preparation sequence. So I can use this one as a way to return a list of functions. And now, because I need to return the first item in the list, I can use list.first to just return the first item. The first item is the name of the first column, which will be 2017 in our case. And now you can see when I click enter, everything works. So it means that the transformation happened. Again, here in the previous step, we had 2017. Here we renamed it to release here without statically mentioning the value of 2017. This is a bit more advanced, I know, and if this is the first time that you know Power Query, by all means, you don't need, ignore me for sure, but just to let you know in a year time frame, or whenever you want to deliver sustainable reports that will not fail in every little glitch in the data schema, table.column names and other techniques in Power BI and Power Query can help you to achieve these sustainable reports. And by that, we can close and apply, refresh our model, and completing this demo. Okay, we have, I think, like 11 more minutes, and I took a lot of our original time for Q&A. We can now move to our last part of the session. Any questions?
Hey, Gil, this is Ed. Can you show people real quickly, if you have Excel running, how to disable loading in Power Query in Excel? Because it's a little bit different than Power BI, and somebody's asked that question.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And it is confusing.
Yeah, it is.
And then also, while you're loading that, you wrote an amazing series a couple of years ago on pitfalls in Power Query, and one of them is like this column rename. Do you happen to have that link available handy that we could post that in the comments?
Sure. Yeah. So basically, all you need to do is do Google data chant pitfalls, and the pitfall archives will get you into a series of 10 articles about Power Query, very common mistakes that we do. Knowing each one of these pitfalls will get you into a big next level in the ability to build robust queries in Power BI. So that's the link. I can share it here on the chat.
Yep.
If I will know how. Yeah, I know how.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah.
Okay, so let's disable load.
Yep, we got that. So yeah, so disable load in Excel so people understand how to do that, because it is very different than how you do it in Power BI.
Sure. So I'm going back to our correct solution for products and do copy. And now let's go to a new Excel file. I will go to data. Inside data, I can click here on queries and connections. Here you will see all your Power Query elements when you build them. So when you use get data and you build stuff, it will just pop up here. This is the equivalent to the queries pane in the Power Query editor. Let's paste this element here. So you see now it's being loaded, and it is loaded as a table. So let's say that we don't want this as a table now. Let's say that we just want it in the data model. So if you just want to switch from using it in a table and instead use a pivot table instead and the model, you can go here under load to and just switch, only create connection and add this data to the model. If you just want to use products as a base query for other queries, all you need to do is combine between choosing only create connection and unchecking the add this data to the data model. By doing that, you are simply having here a connection. So just a connection, no data. This is just a connection that was mainly designed to build on top of it inside Power Query, new tables on top. So, here I can go here and create a reference. And let's now choose only blue. And let's call this one blue products. Let's just assume for Excel, we only want to load blue products for analysis, right? So now you see we have the 52 rows for blue products. The base query is connection only, so we don't have it. And this one is done by, again, right click here. Again, remember that you will need to do, by default, you don't have this pane. So it's important to go to data and select queries and connections. And then right click and load to. And here, make sure that you don't load it into a table and you use only create connections and you uncheck add this to data model. Another yet more important thing, let's say that you have more than 1 million rows, you will you will add the data. Let's just take let's say the blue products are going to be above 1 million rows. So I will switch to connection only, but I will add it into the data model. Okay. And now when it is loaded into the data model, okay, it's not here in any place, but I can now go in Power Pivot, manage, and now build my measures and build relationships. So this is the old Power BI technology inside Power Pivot in Excel. You have a diagram view, the same as in Power BI, and you can here in the data view build here measures like you do in Power BI. And here you can create calculated columns like you do in Power BI. And then the consumption experience for this one will be by going into the insert pivot table, and here create pivot table. You make sure that you use this workbook's data model option, creating OK. And now you see I have the blue products and I can build pivot tables on top. And if you are really, really sophisticated, you can even turn this pivot table into just ranges by OLAP tools, convert to formulas, and now you have cube members and cube values, and you can actually use the grid to query any data from your model as if you are using a pivot table. Okay, any more questions?
I think there is one more question from Pranam. Pranam, you want to ask that question if you can? Or, yeah, he was basically asking, when you copy queries from Power BI to Excel and vice versa, if there are other queries related to that query, do they get copied as well along with the relationship? Or do I have to manually copy all the queries and recreate them, the relationships in Excel? What platform do you recommend for beginners to learn Power Query and DAX, Power BI or MS Excel?
So for when you copy the queries from Excel to Power BI or the other way around, by the way, you can do it also from Power BI to Power BI data flows or Power BI to Power Platform data flows as well. You are only copying the query entities. Nothing in the model is being transferred between the two products. So if you have two tables with a relationship and few DAX measures, this will not be migrated in the copy paste. So it's only part of the data preparations. However, if in Power Query you have one query referencing another, then of course this reference inside Power Query between the two queries will remain. The second question was about a good place to learn Power BI, Power Query, DAX. I think if you are into videos and YouTube, you have the GuineCube channel, which is probably the best weekly updated content by Adam Saxon and Patrick. They are from Microsoft and the Microsoft Power BI CAT team. You'll get there probably everything that you need, whether you are beginner or advanced. There are also great blogs that you can get, typically separated to either Power Query or DAX and modeling, but some will give you a combinations between the two. Also, I recommend to take anything that you have for free as part of the Microsoft content that is delivered. So you have the DIAD, dashboard in a day, tutorials to go through. If you'll go just check https aka.ms/diad. This will get you into the dashboard in a day content, just a tutorial step by step that will take you through most of the features of Power BI desktop, Power BI service. So it's a good segue to start learning and getting more hands-on with Power Query and DAX and modeling as well. And also you have great books to take from multiple experts, MVPs that you can consider as well.
Right. Any other questions, anybody? All right, I guess that's it then. This is a lot of good information, Gil. I really appreciate you spending time going extra yard to cover additional stuff. Very much appreciated. I have thoroughly enjoyed it. I hope everybody enjoyed and learned and benefited from this. And if nobody has any other questions, we will go ahead and adjourn. I'll be sending out that information. Yeah, most of you should have the YouTube, the link as well as the box. If not, again, I'll put it on the Power BI, on the Meetup discussion boards, both this information, and we can take it from there. Thank you very much, Gil. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you. Feel free to reach out if you need anything.
That's good. Yeah,
Bye-bye. Have a good evening.
you too.